Good morning, dear students. So we are this is the third part of the glenohumeral motions, that is part of the shoulder joint, and now we are in the glenohumeral motions. We are discussing the kinematic and kinetic functions of the how aspects of the glenohumeral motions, and we have already discussed about the static stabilization of the shoulder joint, and we have just started the dynamic stabilization of the shoulder joint. So continuing from the last class, that is the second part. So I just told you that regarding with this figure, you can understand that the resultant deltoid, so that is FD. So you can see that there is two force, that is the superior translatory force, that is of the deltoid, and the abductor force, rotatory abductor force of the Fy is acting on the superior aspect of the shaft of the humerus, but the resultant pull, that is uh, uh, the uh, part of the concurrent force system, the resultant pull is in a different direction. But even though you can see that the resultant pull also is still longer compared to the rotational abductor part segment of the deltoid. So that means that still there is a superior translatory force which is more prominent than the abductor force. So that can actually create a superior translatory motion of the glenohumeral the humerus, but it does not happen. So that how does it happen is that I will be talking about that in the next slides. Okay. So here you can see that we have been discussing about the force vectors of the force of deltoid. So you can see the F, that is a higher translatory, and this is a rotatory, and this is a resultant of the F delta force vector, rotational force vector of deltoid. So the superior translatory, which was earlier given as and now you can understand that this force is being counteracted by the force generated by the rotator cuff tendon, the muscles, and that generated by the and transmitted through the tendons. So now here we are discussing it under the heading, that is what is the role of rotator cuff tendons or muscles and in the stabilization of glenohumeral joint. Also, already I have discussed you and you're all familiar that the rotator cuff muscles, as we call it as SITS, SITS, supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis, and these together form the rotator cuff. They are called, these muscles are considered to be part of the cuff because the inserting tendons of each muscle of the cuff blend with and reinforce the glenohumeral capsule. They are called cuff because all these tendons, they insert and merge with the or blend with the glenohumeral capsule. So here you can see the direction of the here you can see the direction of the flexor, the force, resultant force of deltoid, and here you can see the force of the rotator cuff tendons. So it's the same thing shown in a in a different figure. If any one or all of the three vector pulls the infraspinatus, teres minor, scapularis, the muscles is resolved into its components. It can be seen that the rotatory force components Fy not only tends to cause at least some rotation of the humerus, given its orientation to the long axis of the bone, but Fy also compresses. So here you can say that the Fy vectors, here we are talking about, we are not here. So here we are talking about the rotator cuff force vectors. So you can see that the supraspinate, even though we take into consideration the sits, the four muscles of the rotator cuff tendons, but when we are describing it in force vectors, we are separating supraspinatus from the infraspinatus. Here it's written as the resultant vector force vector, rotational force vector of ITS, means infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis. So here we have to understand that first vector, force vector, we are describing. So the direction of the resultant pull of the rotator cuff muscle sits are not the similar. Supraspinatus, because of its orientation, which is superiorly oriented, I can show you another diagram. Yeah, just see here. You can see this is the supraspinatus muscle. The orientation is superior. But if you take all the other muscles, the orientation of the muscles, you can see that it is in the inferior direction of. If you take this is the head of the humerus. So if you take here the head of humerus, but the supraspinatus is superior to the head of the humerus. But all the three muscles, especially subscapular, is covering the whole scapular area, but the magnitude of the pull is always downwards. So these three together are pulling the humeral head downward direction. The supraspinatus muscle are pulling it in a upward direction. So that I just showed you that figure 2. So again, coming back to our the earlier one. So here to understand that the force, the rotatory force vectors acting for the dynamic stabilization of the glenohumeral joint, because of the rotator cuff muscles are not similar. The supraspinatus has a superior rotational force vector, and the ITS, the force vectors, the resultant forces inferior infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis are in an inferior direction. The infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis muscles of the rotator are very important in gleno. So here what happens is you have to again understand that this vector, what you can see here as a Fy as well as the Fy in the subscapularis force vector, these vectors represent in a direction that the head of the humerus is compressed against the glenohumeral, that is the glenoid fossa. Okay. So that is what we are describing. The critical, so compresses equally critical to the stabilize. So when it is compressing, it is it is playing an important role in stabilizing the joint. Inferior caudal. That is in even though it's so it is doing it in an inferior angle, compressing towards the glenoid fossa, but towards an inferior angle. The sum of the three negative inferior translatory components of these three muscles of the rotator cuff nearly offsets the superior translatory force. So we have to understand that the ITS, that is infraspinatus, teres minor, subscapularis, the resultant rotatory force vector of these three muscles are actually offsetting the earlier discussed superior translatory or rotatory force vector of the deltoid muscle. So we can say that the deltoid and the ITS muscles of the sits are acting in a counteract reaction force. That means that together they produce an action, so which is deltoid producing superior translatory, ITS producing an inferior translatory as well as a compressive force, creates a particular situation where the supraspinatus can easily abduct the shaft of the humerus. Sharkey and Marder showed that abduction without the infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis muscles resulted in substantial superiorly directed shifts in the humeral positions in cadaver model. So it is very obvious. After having discussing about the importance of ITS muscle, you understand that if these three muscles are not acting properly, what will happen? The deltoid will overreact or overact, and that will cause a superior translation, and that is pathological. We don't want that. So again, going through the figure, you can see the orientation. Supraspinatus in a superior than and all the three muscles are oriented. Subscapular, some part of it is equal to the head, but again the orientation of the majority of the magnitude is towards directed downward. Now we'll discuss more about the other roles of the ITS, that is the teres minor, infraspinatus, and subscapular. Now we are discussing in the other area of dynamic stabilization. Teres minor and infraspinatus muscle, in addition to their earlier discussed stabilizing role, contribute to abduction of the arm by providing external rotation that typically occurs with elevation of the humerus to help clear the greater tubercle from beneath the acromion. That means we have already discussed that the range of abduction or the range of external and that is what you external and what you call it internal rotation, that is the medial and lateral rotation of the, we have already discussed that in the limb in the sideline lying dependent, we can only get a range of total range of 60 degree. Otherwise, when we abduct our humerus, you can almost reach to 120 degree of combined external and medial and lateral rotation. That was only possible because the head other in the side lying position, the greater tubercle will hit the acromion process, and also sometimes it may hit even hit the capsular structure also. So but when we do the person does an abduction, that is elevation of the humerus at 90 degree, in that position what happens is when there is an external rotation created by the teres minor and infraspinatus muscle, this external rotation will move the greater tubercle away from the acromion process. So that also is very important. It creates external. So the role of teres minor and infraspinatus as external rotators means they will help to move the humerus and in such a way that the greater tubercle is moved away from the acromion so that there is no bony block. Although the weak adduction force of the teres minor muscle and the medial rotatory force. So we have external rotatory force by teres minor and spinatus muscle, and we have a medial rotatory, so that is internal rotatory force of the subscapular muscle. Again, there is a this thing, but Otis and colleagues say that they do not have much important role. Again, the next thing to remember is the medial and lateral rotatory force also help center. So whenever we are talking about these kind of dynamic stabilization, we have to take one thing into clearly in our mind. The idea is when you're talking about dynamic stabilization, the humerus is moving and the scapula is also moving. But in any movement, they have to, whatever way they move, the head of the humerus should be centered to the glenoid fossa. Otherwise, there is not going to be any congruity or any stability. So, whatever we are discussing, the idea here is whatever is the movement of whatever direction is the movement of the humerus, head of the humerus, the scapula should also move in such a way that the glenoid fossa is oriented and centered to the center of the head of the humerus. Hence, Saha referred, and that is the reason why Saha did a study and has proved that and referred these cuff muscles or the sits or the rotator cuff muscles as steerers, or they are the muscle which drive or steer the dynamic stabilization of the glenohumeral joint. Next, we'll discuss about, we already discussed about the ITS, that is infraspinatus, teres minor, and the subscapularis. Now we are going to discuss about the role of supraspinatus separately. What does it have any role in the glenohumeral stabilization? Although the supraspinatus muscle is part of the cuff, as earlier we have discussed, the action line of the supraspinatus muscle, unlike the action lines of the other three rotator cuff muscles, has a superior translatory component rather than the inferior translatory component. We already have discussed that. You can see this, the superior what do you call it, the translatory component, the apex and the compressive component of the supraspinatus muscle, the Fy. But what we achieve is the resultant force, rotatory force component of the subscapularis. The more superior location of the supraspinatus results in an action line that lies farther away from the glenojoint axis than the action lines of the other cuff muscles. So we have already showed you that diagram, if you remember the orientation of the muscles. You can see that the supraspinatus muscles orientation or the action line is totally away from the glenojoint axis. So we already have studied in the first chapter that MA, that the momentum is always more, or the torque increases whenever the distance between the action line and the perpendicular distance between action and the axis and the action line. So here you can be sure that the